Hey, what's going on everybody? Welcome back to the channel. I'm Waller's Wallet, and in this video, we're going to be talking about Fidelity index funds and how to get started investing with them, and even some good options to consider investing in. Now, Fidelity, it's just one of many different brokerage options out there for you to invest with. And while many people might initially look to Vanguard or Schwab, Fidelity offers a lot of different investment options from IRAs, index funds, 529 accounts, ETFs, pretty much whatever you need, you can find it with Fidelity. And Fidelity has some funds that could actually be more appealing than some Vanguard funds. Now, to get started with Fidelity, it's actually pretty simple. It only takes a few minutes of your time to open up an account. Now, when you get to Fidelity's website, you want to select Open an Account, and from here, you want to select the type of account you want to open. Whether you want to roll over an old IRA, maybe open a new IRA, open a broker account, or one of the many other types of accounts that they offer. But after you select that you wanted to open an account with them, you do need to select if this is an individual or a joint account and enter in all of your personal information. And once you do that, you're pretty much good to go. You just need to fund your account, and you can do this by linking an external bank account to Fidelity, transferring an account to Fidelity. You can even fund it with PayPal or even Apple Cash. And then you're ready to go and start trading and investing your money. And since we are opening up a taxable brokerage account for this example, if you ever needed to, you could liquidate these funds in your brokerage account without any penalty. Although there would be some tax implications if you wanted to sell your stock shares, so be sure to look into those situations. Now, Fidelity's brokerage accounts, it doesn't charge any fees on thousands of different investment options, but some options like mutual funds from other institutions could be hit with fees. But Fidelity does a really good job letting you know if a particular fund will have a fee attached to it. Now, for example, if you wanted to purchase VT Saks, which is a Vanguard fund, it's going to have a $75 fee every time you wanted to purchase this fund from Fidelity. So don't do that. And they even offer fractional shares where you can buy ETFs or US stocks in dollar amounts instead of buying whole shares. And I really do enjoy seeing places offer fractional shares, because this is a great way to make sure every dollar you invest is working for you. And it also reduces that barrier so that more people can invest in quality options. Although you're not able to set up auto investment of fractional shares of ETFs with Fidelity, so you would need to make the purchase yourself each and every time, making this just a little bit more time consuming for you. They even offer customers their own robo-advisor, which I'll cover in a separate video, and they call this Fidelity Go. Now, when it comes to Fidelity index funds, they do have some great funds, and they have some great research tools to really help educate you so you can make an informed decision. And to access some of these tools, you need to go over to the top where it says News and Research and select Mutual Funds. And from there, you can search these funds based on criteria that you set. You can look at Fidelity's own fund strategy to help guide you, or you can even look at the funds picked from Fidelity where they look at different criteria to determine the funds selected. And you can sort by different categories, such as US equities, for example. Then you can select what group you want to sort by, from large cap blend to small cap value, and then Fidelity is going to sort out all the options for you. And when you are looking at their funds, you can sort them out by their different returns or even different expense ratios. And if you wanted to, you could even compare funds to get a better idea of how they stack up. And when you compare these funds, you can see their performance from a year-to-date standpoint, up to 10 years, or even their lifetime. You can also see their Morningstar risk. You also get to see the information about their fees and turnover rates, minimum investment amounts, and even the dividends they last paid out on these funds. So Fidelity does a really good job letting you see how the funds compare to one another. And if you wanted more information on one of the funds that you are comparing, you can just select it and you'll be taken to that funds page so you can get more detailed information about that particular fund or even stock. And while there are plenty of Fidelity investment options that have no minimum investment amount, you do want to be aware of their expense ratios. And the expense ratio is the annual fee that is charged on these funds. And some of these fees are pretty high and others are extremely reasonable. And Fidelity actually has funds that have no expense ratios. Now, I did do a video on those, so be sure to check that out if you want a full breakdown on those no-cost funds. And if you're like me, you want to keep these expense ratios as low as possible, because these fees will add up and it takes away from the money that you could be investing. For example, the Fidelity 500 Index Fund, FXAIX, has an expense ratio of just 0.015%. That's just $1.50 for every $10,000 you have invested with them, which is unbelievably cheap. Compare that to Fidelity's Europe Fund, which has an expense ratio of 1.03%. That's $103 for every $10,000 you have invested, and that is a lot of fees. And I don't think there's any reason to pay that much in fees, because you can absolutely make a great portfolio with low fee funds. Paying more in fees does not necessarily mean that you're going to be making more money. Then if you are investing in Fidelity index funds, you can set up automatic investment, so you don't even need to think about investing, making it super easy. Also, their index funds, or index funds in general, you can only buy or sell them once a day, usually after the market is closed, so daily fluctuations are not going to matter. But while that's great, what are some Fidelity index funds that you should be paying attention to build out a well-rounded portfolio? Now, there are a lot of great options, and you can select great options that are not included on this list as well. Now, I am all about simplicity, and I usually think a 3-fund portfolio is a great start for people, and they can make it more complicated if they want to, but there may not be a reason to complicate it at all. Now, the first one you should consider looking at is FXAIX. Now, this is Fidelity's S&P 500 index fund, which tracks the S&P 500. And there are 508 stocks here in this fund, which makes sense since it tracks the S&P 500. And the top 10 holdings make up 27.34% of this portfolio. Now, there are a couple of things that make this a great option either for new investors or someone pretty much looking to get a great investment option. First is the expense ratio, which is only 0.015%, which is peanuts. Peanuts! For a fund that you can own the entire S&P 500. There's also no minimum investment requirement to get started with FXAIX. And this fund also pays out a quarterly dividend, which if you wanted to, you can reinvest those back into the fund, help compounding your return over time, and its dividend yield is about 1.53%. And since this fund tracks the S&P 500, it has performed pretty much identically to the S&P 500. So when the S&P 500 does well, so will this index fund. The next fund you should be taking a look at is FSKAX, which is Fidelity's Total Market Index. Now, as the name would suggest, this is a total market fund, and with it, you're buying the entire market, just not the stocks, let's say, of the S&P 500. And this index fund has 3,532 different stocks in its fund, and its top 10 holdings make up over 22% of the total portfolio. And FSKAX has an expense ratio of just 0.015%, and this is just absurdly cheap. It also has no minimum investment requirement. Now for dividends, FSKAX pays them out twice a year, and it's not even an even split. It looks to be about a 17-ish% payout in April and about an 82% payout of the dividend in December, and its dividend yield is about 1.4%. Now, investing in US companies or US index funds is great because their returns have historically been pretty strong. But diversifying into international funds, I think, is also important, even if it's a lower percentage of your portfolio allocation. Now, this leads us to FSPSX, which is Fidelity's International Index Fund. Now, Fidelity's International Index Fund has about 80% of its stocks allotted to ones that match the MSCI EAFE index. And the EAFE, it stands for the Europe, Australasia, and the Far East, which gives a representation of the international markets. And this fund is made up of 892 different stocks, and the top 10 holdings make up about 11.8%. But again, we see a very good expense ratio coming in at just 0.035%. And again, it does not have any minimum investment amount. Now, FSPSX dividend is typically paid out twice a year, but it does look like in 2020, the dividend was paid out just once in December. Then we can round this all out with a bond index, and the one we're going to take a look at is FXNAX, which is Fidelity's US Bond Index Fund. Now, bonds are meant to help diversify your portfolio and help reduce your risk. So while you're younger, you can take on more risks, so bonds may be a smaller part of your portfolio. but as you age, bonds may become a larger part of your portfolio. And FXNAX is made up of 545 assets, and the top 5 assets make up over 65% of the total bonds holding. And the expense ratio on this fund is very low as well, coming in at just 0.025%, and it also has no minimum investment requirement. And FXNAX pays out a monthly dividend, and it's been roughly about 2 cents per share in 2020 and has a dividend yield of about 2.07%. Now, these are the few funds I pulled from Fidelity's website that I think that could be useful for you to build out a portfolio, but they are by no means the only ones that you could use. So be sure to do your research before deciding, because they have a lot of solid options out there that could be great for you in your portfolio. Now, Fidelity has some great funds with many different investment options that could be extremely useful in making yourself a cost-effective portfolio with great returns. I mean, FXAIX or FSKAX could be great alternatives to Vanguard funds, because Vanguard index funds not only have a minimum investment amount, somewhere around $3,000, but they also have higher expense ratios. Then if you were someone looking to use Fidelity index funds for their automatic investing ability to make your investing just a little bit easier, they do that for you, and it is pretty easy to do. And there are no minimum investment amounts, so you can just get started investing. And since auto investing puts investing on autopilot, you'll also be getting the advantage of dollar cost averaging without even thinking about it. In setting up a Fidelity account, it only takes a few minutes, and you have access to great research tools to learn about their funds and even compare their funds to other index funds from other institutions. And you can really get a good, complete picture so that you can make a well-informed decision. So if you've been considering investing with Fidelity, they pretty much have everything you need to get started investing or continue your investing path. They also have a pretty user-friendly website, and their mobile app is pretty solid as well. And they are known to have great customer service, which is available 24/7, which is great since not all platforms offer that level of customer service. So let me know, do you invest with Fidelity, or have you even thought about it? Now, if you're someone wanting to build a dividend portfolio that earns you $1,000 per month just from your dividends, then be sure to check out this video right here where I tell you how much money you need to invest in order to make that happen. And if you want to help support the channel, take a look at the links down in the description below. And if you know someone that would find this video helpful, feel free to share with them, and I'll see you in the next one. Take care.